Classy.
So I got a nasty attitude. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it. Well, it started in the beginning. In the beginning, what had happened was I get a Social Security check every month, and I had to have a payee at the time, and so I had to get. Well, the only person that I trusted was family. This is what they say: family will burn you worse than people on the streets will. So I had to get my auntie to become my payee. Me and my son, we was living in a nice 2-bedroom apartment. I mean, real nice, and I had to get my rent paid. So I was depending on my aunt that when she got my check every first of the month to pay my rent, she would sit there and blow it off and wait till the third when she got her check, which would put me back in rent, because by the third now I got late fees. Them late fees, they ended up adding up. So I ended up had to get evicted, not because of me, but because of the irresponsibility of my payee. So that landed me and my son into a shelter. So while we was inside of the shelter, I'm stressed out. I'm like, I cannot believe I just lost a roof over my head. I'm trying to figure out how I can get another roof over me and my son's head, because I know that look bad with a child. Because the state, they'll snatch up your children. Even if you got a roof over your head, if you ain't got lights on in the house and you struggling and you didn't pay your light bill, or for whatever reason, they'll take your children out the household if you ain't got no lights on there. They ain't trying to hear that. You know how we is. We old school, you know what I'm saying? From where I come from, if you struggling and you don't got no lights in your house, you gonna go get some candles. You gonna do whatever you got to do to try to make it work. But I ended up in the shelter, and I was very, very, very stressed out. What shelter did was they actually tricked me. They called DHR. They told me that when DHR got there, they talked to me. They brought me around the table. And I'm like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? And they was like, well, there's no complaints on your child or nothing, of no abuse of anything like that. But we just was wondering, could we take the child, you know what I'm saying, temporary? And I was like, real eerie about it when they said it at the time. I'm like, thinking to myself, wow, y'all here. Like, I'm going through enough as it is right now. I've been betrayed. I'm homeless. I'm here in a place where I don't want to be, so I'm aggravated, irritated, with an attitude and a whole lot of things. So for y'all to be up in my face, it's like, it's more to it than this. So they told me if we will take them and put them into a home temporary, no, you don't have to go to court. None of them fees, them legal issues and nothing like that. They, I to this day, I just, it kills me that they caught me at my time of weakness. And I felt like at that moment in that time, that was probably a good idea as far as my son, because I'm looking at it like, okay, I'd rather for him to be somewhere in a home than to be up in here with me. So said they have to find other relatives, and they have to find, but my thing is, he wanted to pop himself up in a picture after the fact. I don't know if that was DHR doing that brought him into the picture, but I found it very strange that he just happens to pop up within the last year and a half. Why is y'all even doing all this? So after they took my son, I had a breakdown, because I was like, this is the first time my son being away from me, even though I felt like that was the best decision. But me as a mother, I still felt bad, because I'm like, my son is going to go to people that he don't even know. So I had a breakdown. Right. I ended up in the hospital. I discharged myself at the hospital in less than 24 hours. And so what I did was I got on my stuff. I just jumped on the ball. I found me a place in less than 2 or 3 weeks. I got everything I needed inside of that place. So they called me in for a meeting. And so I went to the meeting and everything. And when I got up in there, it was like them people just straight turned on me. They was like, well, there was a complaint of neglection and abuse. And I'm like, what? This was not our agreement. You know what I'm saying? It was like they just took my son and just basically created their own case against me. It was like, so now my whole world just just ripped apart. It's like, are you serious? Y'all told me I wouldn't have to go through no court cases. Y'all told me I wouldn't have to stand through no judge. The only thing, y'all was gonna hold my son until I got on my feet. I'm on my feet, give me my son. These people has had my son for 6 years now. For 6 years now. And I've been in and out of court. In and out of court. In and out of court. Whatever I bring to the table, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. They done switched over my caseworkers about 4 or 5 times. I mean, they had got so dirty with the situation to where they even tried to take me to court to terminate my parental rights. When I knew that they was going to put me on trial to terminate my parental rights, I knew it was an issue then. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go up in here in this court, because we was in court for like, it was like I was on trial. I got to say, I was there at 8 o'clock. I got there at 8 o'clock. They called me back there like 2 hours later. I didn't walk up out that court building until about 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The accusations and everything that I was hearing when I was inside of that court building, it was just ridiculous. So they gave me a court-appointed lawyer, which was a woman. And I'm going to tell you something about them lawyers too. Them lawyers is not for you. Them lawyers, when they say court-appointed, they state lawyers, they're really for the state. They gave me this woman. I was like, okay, this is a woman. She should understand, you know what I'm saying? So she's going to fight for me, you know, more harder than a man would, because she's a female and she has a family. When I found out that that lady had screwed me even worse in the situation, I mean, she had me signing off confidential paperwork. Because, see, I don't know no better. I don't know no better. I'm just doing everything that is told of me to do in order to get my son back. So I'm signing off paperwork that I didn't even know I wasn't supposed to sign off. And my lawyer sitting right there. So after that, he was 4. That's what keeps me up at night. That's what makes me not be able to sleep. I've been going through this for 6 years, not being able to sleep at night, worrying about who's sexually abusing my son. And to witness a situation when, I'm going to tell you, the worst feeling in the world is to be a mother and to see your son hurting and you have no control over it. It's nothing you can do. You cannot even try to save them. Excuse me. Yeah. But it was a situation where I had went and seen my son and he had a busted lip. And I asked him what happened. And he told me that one of the foster parents had busted him, hit him in the mouth. Yeah, and when they took him from me, he didn't have a scar on his body, but you put him inside of a home and y'all claim y'all got this system set up to protect the children, but yet in y'all possession, while my son was in y'all possession, I'm witnessing him being abused. And y'all just turning the other cheek, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I'm not nice. Ain't no mother's nice when they see their children hurting. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I was the best person in the world and I handled the situation good. No, I didn't. I made threats. I cussed. I fussed. I threatened. I was mad. I'm still am angry. Every day, I'm still angry. I'm more so angry at myself because I'm like, how can you been so weak to let them have done this to you? I just hope that my son don't think that I just gave him away. Yeah, that's just my biggest fear, that he thinks that I don't love him no more. I don't want him no more. Mommy gave me away because of my behavior. But he was in the good home for a few years. But what had happened was my son's behavior had got out of control. He started to become very angry, which you can't blame them becoming angry after a certain period of time. He became angry. He became violent. And I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, he was in a good home for a minute, but his behavior had got out of control. He started becoming angry. He started becoming aggressive. He started, to lash out at the woman, just a whole lot of stuff, which is usual for a child to do that. I'm thinking that he started getting restless, of the fact that he wasn't with me anymore. And I'm the only one he known, even from day one, because I told you about my issue with my mother. It was just me and him. It was just always just me and him. So she put a complaint in and said she couldn't take it no more. But even though she talked to me all the time, and she told me, I'm getting, because she was an older woman, she was like, I'm getting older, and I can't be grabbing on him and trying to hold him when he's, having these temper tantrums, because he's getting bigger, and I'm not going to be able to control him after a while. So probably try to find him another home. So since then, my son been in they didn't move him into the mental hospital. He was up in the mental hospital, I think, for about a year. Transferred him to that one and to another one here recently that's in Alabama. I think it's Bay Point. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. It's Bay Point, somewhere in Alabama. And it's just been hectic ever since, because even still, so it's been times, I'm not gonna sit here like, it's been times where this stuff just been so hard on me to where I didn't had a fit, and I'd be like, you know what, today is the day where I can't take this no more. I'm finna give these people what they want. I'm finna stand over my parental rights, because I can't take this no more. I'm sitting here fighting and fighting and fighting. And you got people inside of the system that has their children inside the system that's not breaking their ass doing nowhere near as much as I'm doing. And they're not even trying to, give me my son or bring him no closer to me than he should. And I just wasn't understanding it. So a close friend of mine, she had to talk me out of it. She's like, don't stand over your parental rights. Don't do it. And I was like, you don't understand. You don't understand the mental. It's putting me through. It's draining. I'm study fighting. This going back and forth to court. It's so much draining than what you think. And then going through all these programs they want you to go through. They want you to take the parenting classes. Then when I get aggravated and tired and I snap off on them, now, Miss Green, you need to take anger management classes. I went and took the anger management classes, got the certificate. When it took the parenting class, it was like they was taking me, and then it started to register. I was like, you know what? These people ain't got they looking for something. They're trying to build a case on me. They don't have a case, because if they hadn't had a case, they would have terminated my parental rights a long time ago. It's not me. They looking for something. They're trying to build a case on me. They don't have a case, because if they hadn't had a case, they would have terminated my parental rights a long time ago. It's not me. I get a Social Security check. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing everything right. They just don't have no intentions on giving me my son. They're just trying to make money off of my son. I get a Social Security check. They looking for something. They're trying to build a case on me. They don't have a case, because if they hadn't had a case, they would have terminated my parental rights a long time ago. It's not me. I get a Social Security check. I've diagnosed him with a mental illness. Children that got this, that has problems like that, they make actually more money and they get a bonus. I've diagnosed him with a mental illness. I get a Social Security check. And it's like, meanwhile, it's like when I'm sitting up in these meetings and I'm expressing to them how I feel and telling them that it's not even about, I don't feel like it's about my son. It's about y'all getting a check, and it's about who getting the biggest check off of this child. I get a Social Security check. It's like my voice is not being heard. I get a Social Security check. Or they labeling me as crazy. Now I get a Social Security check. You need to go and get on some medication and go see a therapist. And it's like, everything is like, it's driving me crazy. It's like, why I have to be the one? I get a Social Security check. Why it has to be me? Everything that y'all putting me through, I got the right to be angry. I got the right to be pissed, especially since y'all tricked me, because that's how I feel. I feel like I was tricked. I get a Social Security check. Y'all told me I wouldn't have to go through none of this from the get-go. Now, what it is, it's 6 years, and I'm still wrapped up into this triangle, fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. I get a Social Security check. I left the state of Alabama because I saw that I wasn't getting no closer to my goal. I get a Social Security check. And my goal is to get my son and bring him home. So I said, you know what? Let me step outside of the jurisdiction of Alabama and go somewhere else and try to fight from him from another state. Because I see that Alabama is not trying to play fair. You know what I'm saying? No matter what I do, and I told them that. I said, no matter what I do, no matter what I bring to the table, it's not going to ever be good enough. I see that now. You know what I'm saying? I see that now. So the last meeting I had with them, I told them straight up. I said, I see y'all not going to give them to me. So can y'all give them to a family member then? Because I'm thinking outside the box now. You got to think outside the box with them. I'm like, okay, maybe if y'all give them to a family member, I didn't say this to them, I'm saying it to my head. Maybe if they give them to a family member, then I can go through the courts and get them back to a family member, and it won't be so hard. I get a Social Security check. Because they have you thinking all outside the box. After 6 years of keep putting you through the same crap, that you eventually start thinking outside the box. You be like, you know what? I done did it y'all way for 6 years. I done, like a dog, chased my tails and went around in circles. Let y'all put me in circles. I done took the parenting classes, I can say about 10 times or more. I get a Social Security check. And I'm passing it. It's not like I'm just taking these parenting classes and I'm not passing it. I got certificates. You know what I'm saying? I get a Social Security check. What's the problem? Then it goes from that to, well, you need to be stable. Whoa. I get a Social Security check. When y'all first got them, I moved so fast, y'all didn't even know what to do. I got a place in 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I got a place just like that. I held that place down for 2 years. I get a Social Security check. He had his own room and everything. What was the excuse then? Here he is again. Now you telling me basically, because now I'm not in that spot no more. Because them 2 years has passed. Things happened. I had to move. I couldn't afford it by myself. So I ended up having to get a roommate. I get a Social Security check. Then the next excuse is, well, you need to live by yourself. Okay, when I was living by myself, it still was an excuse. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling y'all, it's hard out here. I get a Social Security check. Especially for somebody like me that's just getting a monthly check. It's hard to find a job. I get a Social Security check. If you don't know somebody, know somebody to get into a job. So if this is my only means of living, I get a Social Security check. It's to go and get a roommate. That's still not good enough. But when I was standing on my own, that still wasn't good enough. I get a Social Security check. That's why I came to the point where I was just like, you know what? I started losing weight. I couldn't sleep. I have never in my life had anxiety attacks and panic attacks. I didn't start having anxiety and panic attacks until when they separated my family. That's when I started having, I didn't even know what them things was. I had one. It was like every time it was time close for court, I have a real bad anxiety attack or a panic attack. I didn't even know what it was. I thought I was having a heart attack. It took for me to call the ambulance to my house one day.
To use legal aid. Legal aid told me in the state of Alabama, they don't take custody battles.
Yeah, that's why I said I came to another state. And that's why I said sometimes you got to think outside the box dealing with them. So after 6 years, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like I said, sometimes you got to think outside the box with them. So after battling for 6 years by myself, I get a Social Security check. I said, because I had been trying to leave Alabama. But the only thing that kept me there was him. It was him. Because I said, I can't just up and leave because he's here. He don't have no family here. I'm the only family that he got here. So I was like, you know what? This is not working. I'm just going to have to go ahead and move and go to Georgia and try to fight them from a different state. And hopefully they'll put it in front of a judge that has more sense. They was complaining about him anyway. I had seen him on the news where they were saying that I forgot exactly what it was, but it was something more so like he's good for terminating people's rights.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I saw that, I just got scared. I was like, oh my God, that's my judge. You know what I'm saying? I've been dealing with him for over 6 years. I was like, oh my God. So that scared me. And I was like, you telling me I'm dealing with a corrupt judge? This is the reason why. So the caseworkers, they play their part. The lawyers, they play their part. Everybody plays their part. But they try to make it seem like they're for you when they're really not. It took me a while to catch on to the fact that, being nice and, even my friends, they'll tell me, you can't talk to them like that. You can't cuss them out. You can't. I'll be like, what? Do you understand what these people been doing to me? I'm supposed to continue to kiss ass and be this nice, pleasant person when I know they straight playing me? When I know they taking me through the ringers on purpose and getting off on it? Yeah, it's to the point where now they can't even find a home for him to get in, because that's why he's in the mental hospital now. Because they said every home he goes into, they want to get rid of him because of his behavior. Or when I'm sitting down with a meeting, they tell me, well, it was one meeting that was real strange to me. They was telling me, well, he's walking around now. My son, before he got into the system, he was around pets. He was around dogs. He was around cats. He was around all type of, animals. He know the difference between people food and dog food. Now, this one incident, they're telling me, well, he's walking around eating the dog food at the bowl. I was like, well, you must not be feeding him, because my son know the dang on difference. For him to sit there and eat out of the dog bowl and eat the food, it's something y'all not feeding him. Yes, right now he's on like 3 different medications. Because they put him in a school like that because he was acting up in school. So they put him in the school because he kept getting suspended. He kept getting suspended. So they put him in the school where he couldn't get suspended in. And I said to myself then, I said, they didn't put him in something like a little prison. Meanwhile, y'all making all this money off of my son. I get a Social Security check. And just like I told him in the last meeting, y'all claim this is best for the child. This is not what's best for the child. I said, it's not even about me no more. I don't even care about myself. I get a Social Security check. I care about my child's well-being. Do y'all not see that ever since y'all have had him, his behavior hasn't got worse? He's doing things that he was not doing when he was with me. But they did me the same way. After they tried to take me and put me on trial to try to terminate my parental rights, nothing but the grace of God saved me, because the judge did not terminate my parental rights. I get a Social Security check. But do you know what DHR had the nerves to do after that? They had the nerves to send somebody over. Now, if I wasn't paying attention to that paperwork, I think I'd be in prison today. I get a Social Security check. Now, if I wasn't paying attention to that paperwork, I think I'd be in prison today. I happens to read, because normally I just, sign it off. I get a Social Security check and go along what they say, because I just wanted to do whatever it is that they needed me to do. But this specific day, it was after court. Like, I'm gonna say about a month after court, because it took a month for the judge to come up with a verdict. They don't tell you right then and there. They'll send it through the mail. That's how they did me. They sent it through the mail and told me what the judge's verdict was. That's how they do it in Alabama. I don't know how they do it in other states. I get a Social Security check. But they sent a caseworker to my house with some paperwork. They told me that he was coming over there for some paperwork for his schooling for me to sign off. Okay, they sent me that paperwork, and it was another type of paperwork. And I couldn't understand the legal terms of the paperwork. And I kept reading, and I'm like, what is this? And I asked the lady, I said, what is this? And she was like, just sign it. And I was like, but I don't know what this is. What is this? I'm reading it and I'm not understanding what it is saying, right? And she was like, well, just sign it, you know what I'm saying? And then just get to the other paperwork as far as his schooling is concerned. And so I kind of, because I was at her car. So what I did was I picked the paperwork up and I set it on top of her car. I said, no, I'm gonna have a lawyer look at that, because I feel something real fishy about that paperwork. And she snatched the paperwork away from off the top of the car. She said, don't worry about it. So I was like, okay. So I read the other paperwork. It did have something to do with retaining to his schooling, and I signed off on that. So right when she left, I called my lawyer, and she told me straight up, she was like, do not sign no paperwork that's coming from DHR. I said I did. I signed the piece of paper that had something to do with his school. And she was like, that's fine. She said, because what DHR is trying to do now, they're trying to get you to sign over your parental rights. I was like, what? She was like, that's probably that piece of paper. When you kept asking her what that was, that's probably what that piece of paper was. That's how dirty and low down they'll go. I get a Social Security check. I actually spoke to my caseworker 3 days ago in Alabama to find out what was going on with my son. And she told me he was still in Bay Point. And she gave me a phone number, to call him. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I have not talked to my son within 2 months because every time I talk to him, he's telling me somebody is doing to him. I can't do nothing about it. And it bothers me and it makes me angry and it makes me act outside of my character. But I know I have to talk to him because 2 months is a long time to a 10-year-old. So I'm trying to boost myself up to make that phone call. I was supposed to make that phone call 2 days ago. Every day I tell myself, I'm gonna call him. I gotta get the strength to call him in order to sit on the phone and listen to his complaints. That's where he got his busted lip at. When I had seen him and he had got his busted lip, that's when I flipped out. I was like, he told me that they slammed him on the floor and that's how he got his busted lip. So I was like, y'all slamming children on the floor now? Well, we don't know nothing about that. I said, but my son told me he was slammed on the floor, on his mouth, the way how he got that busted lip. Now, when y'all got my son, he didn't have a scar on his body, but I'm being accused of abusing him, though. Wow. I'm being accused of neglecting him, though. And that's another thing. Somebody had to tell me about that. They was like, stop cussing them out. Stop going off on them when it's something, because they might be doing stuff to him behind your back. So I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to sit here and act like these things are not happening? I can't talk to my lawyer because my lawyer is with them. He's not with me. You know what I'm saying? So what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, so you telling me the only thing that's in between me and my son, for me to get my son back, is between $3,000 and $5,000 in order to get me a real lawyer? Because that's what it all comes down to. They was trying to get me to sign paperwork for him to get SSI. They told me that they wouldn't give it to them. They was like, so we need you to go down there to the Social Security board so you can. I said, I'm gonna tell you like this. I get a Social Security check. What? I said, I bet y'all won't be signing no paperwork until I get him back in my custody. I said, y'all making enough money off of him. I get a Social Security check. What? I said, that's the reason why Social Security won't give y'all no check for him, because they know y'all getting enough money off of him. Have you tried reaching out to lawyers in Alabama where you see if they can take pro bono? I tried that. I mean, y'all just don't know how many lawyers I've called to try to see if they'll get a pro bono, to give me a pro bono. And none of them will budge. None of them will. That state is set up for money. That state is strictly set up for money. So this is what I deal with. I get a Social Security check. I even went so far as they say I need to be on medicine. Okay, I went and seen y'all little psychiatrists. I went and got on the medicine. I took the medicine. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's nothing wrong with me. I'm just angry. I get a Social Security check. I'm angry, and then they sit down at a table and they's like, why are you so angry? I said, you know what? I didn't become angry until y'all broke my family apart. I get a Social Security check. Now I'm the crazy one. No, I have two. My daughter is with my mother. She's in Virginia. She didn't have it ever since she was born. She didn't been with my mama and been in that environment for so long. No, I have two. My daughter is with my mother. She's in Virginia. She didn't have it ever since she was born. So me and my mother, we just came to an understanding that she come to visit me, and I see her when school is out and holidays and stuff like that. But for the most part, she stays with my mother. Probably because of my actions, because of the way I was acting. Yeah. When all this was going on, calling, snapping, making threats and stuff like that. That's probably why they thought I was crazy. But that was coming from a place of hurt. I get a Social Security check. No, I have two. My daughter is with my mother. She's in Virginia. She didn't have it ever since she was born. My daughter, she's 12. She's good. She's wonderful. And they wouldn't even give my mom my son, because she tried to step in and get my son. That she didn't make enough money. And they also told her, well, if you want to get him, she needs to take not parenting classes, it's foster care classes. So my mom, she's already working 2 jobs. And you telling her basically within them 2 jobs, she's still not making enough money to get my son. Because I can honestly say that was the first time I actually felt sorry for my mom. I get a Social Security check. Because I can honestly say that was the first time I actually felt sorry for my mom. Like, they won't give me my grandson because they're saying that I don't make enough money. I'm like, are you serious?
Yes.
Nothing dealing with Alabama makes sense. I'll tell anybody that's a backwards ass state.
Exactly. I guess they rather for that money to stay in the loop.
I get a Social Security check.
Yes.
Now they have diagnosed him with some type of mental illness because, they got to say he crazy now and he's acting up. I get a Social Security check. So that, like I was saying in the beginning, that's more money right there. That's like a bonus. But I'm thinking it's wearing him down, though, believe it or not, because they can't even find a home to place him in at this point. You know what I'm saying? Because he done been in so many homes, and so many people claim that they're scared for their lives, and this to the third. That's the reason why he's been sitting up in the mental hospital. They're starting to run out of options. I'm starting to see that. The last meeting I went to, they was running out of options, and I couldn't do nothing. I know this may sound mean, but laugh at them in their face at their meeting. I get a Social Security check. Because it's like, now y'all don't even know what to do. And they was like, well, we don't know what to do. I said, I know what y'all can do. And they was like, what? I said, give me my son back. I get a Social Security check. And then they use reverse psychology on me because of me spazzing out and going off. They say, well, we want to make sure that you don't spaz out on the child the way you spaz out on us if you become impatient. I get a Social Security check. She said, I would never forget when she told me that. We want to make sure that you don't spaz out on him when you get impatient, like how you get impatient with us. I get a Social Security check. Especially for how long he's been up in there. Yes. And I done made peace with the fact that if I ever do get him back, you know how many years of therapy I'm gonna have to put him through? Mm-hmm. I get a Social Security check. He's not gonna never be the same ever when I get him back. Ever. I get a Social Security check. I haven't been here for 30 days yet. I don't even have a roof over my head. I'm staying with a friend of mine. I get a Social Security check. Sure, I have a roof over my head, so it won't be no excuses. I want to make sure my system is clean. I get a Social Security check. I want to make sure my system is clean. He has a legal guardian that be there inside of the meetings. Some white dude, I don't know, that the state got for him. You remember when we had our government shut down? It was like almost as if it was on the tip of their tongue that they wanted to give them back then because they wasn't making no money. I was hoping, I had my fingers crossed that government shutdown lasted longer so they could have gave me back my son. I get a Social Security check. They wasn't getting paid no more. It was on the tip of their tongue. I can almost tell they was finna say, because they was like they was running out of funds, and they was doing talk like that. And I'm like, it's so funny y'all talking about funds and stuff while we going through this government shutdown. Because for real, I've been a slave to the game for 6 years. And that's all I kept saying to people. I feel like I got shackles on my feet. And it's like when I say that to people, it's like they didn't understand what I'm saying. I'm like, yo, I'm a slave to the game right now. And all I want to do is be free. And I still am, you know what I'm saying? Technically, I still am a slave to the game. I don't want to be a slave to this game no more. I get a Social Security check. And I still am, you know what I'm saying? Technically, I still am a slave to the game. I don't want to be a slave to this game no more. But I did it to myself. I did it to myself. I would tell anybody out there, if the state trying to help you, do not get help. Don't seek help from them because they're not trying to help you. They're trying to help themselves. I really thought that they was trying to help me, and their agenda was not out to help me. Their agenda was out to help themselves. And I still am, you know what I'm saying? Technically, I still am a slave to the game. I don't want to be a slave to this game no more. I get a Social Security check. Say us black women, we got so much hate in our heart. We so mean. Taking our children from us, you taking our husbands from us. I get a Social Security check. If I had 3 or 5 grand sitting around, my son, I probably would have been here, my son. But we poor. I don't have 3 or 5 grand sitting around. I get a Social Security check. And it's hard to even try to work to come up with 3 and 5 grand when you got other responsibilities that you have to handle. I get a Social Security check. They know it. It's a trap. I thought that they was actually going to help me, and they didn't. Yeah. They stabbed me completely in my back, and everything's been going downhill since then. Because that's basically the same shelter I was in. It was a woman's battle shelter. Yup. Yeah, they did my cousin the same way. She got so many degrees, and believe it or not, guess what she's working at? After having 3 degrees underneath her belt, she's working at Wendy's. and she didn't took up law and passed the bar exam. That's what I told her to. I told her to represent me in my case, but she didn't became so encouraged in that department. She was like, "You need you a real lawyer." I said, "You is a real lawyer." I get a Social Security check. I happens to read because normally I just, sign it off and go along what they say because I just wanted to do whatever it is that they needed me to do. I get a Social Security check. But this specific day, it was after court. Like, I'm going to say about a month after court because it took a month for the judge to come up with a verdict. They don't tell you right then and there. They'll send it through the mail. That's how they did me. They sent it through the mail and told me what the judge verdict was. I get a Social Security check. That's how they do it in Alabama. I don't know how they do it in other states.